Hillary Clinton wasn't interested in having a repeat of the run-in that Bernie Sanders had with Black Lives Matter activists last week in Seattle. And so this time in New Hampshire, when she was having an event and those activists showed up, they were offered a place in an overflow room, which Clinton later visited, according to The Guardian U.S. So they were not in the actual room with Hillary, thus taking away the possibility of them rushing the stage. This is according to the founder of Black Lives Matter's chapter in Worcester, who says, "The place we ended up arriving with her in part was a personal discussion about what we think would work. She was not willing to concede that the inherent anti-blackness in the policies that were enacted to address problems is the cause of the problems that we have today." So despite the fact that they were originally in the overflow room, she did go and speak with them afterward. So I think that she balanced being concerned, the concerns of them taking over the event, with not wanting to be seen to not understand the urgency of their issue. I think that she did a good job there. We're going to have a little bit of video of one of the BLM Boston the organizers in just a little bit. But do you think that she struck a good balance here?
Yes.
Or is it a weak move?
No. So first off, I get not wanting to be interrupted. And I've got real issues with how Black Lives Matter is handling that as it regards Bernie Sanders and others, right? Now, I get to have my issues, as I said, comfortably in the studio, right? I get that it's my perspective, is not the only perspective, and it's easier for me to say that. Having said that, I think this is totally unfair to Bernie Sanders because since he's more open to them, his events get interrupted, his events get taken over. Hillary Clinton is less open to them, and so Black Lives Matter, but they matter in the overflow room. Yeah. Right? So I'm going to put you in look at the symbolism of putting you in the overflow room, right? But yet, for whatever reason, they're more respectful of her, right? She polls really well among African Americans, okay? I don't know if that'll continue if she keeps putting them in the overflow room, right? But I think Bernie Sanders' policies have been far friendlier to African Americans than Hillary Clinton's. So we've got this situation in time, which might change based on how people continue to react to the two candidates. But right now, as things stand, it appears that Black Lives Matter is angrier at Bernie Sanders than they are at Hillary Clinton, which makes no sense at all. Yeah, and we know from earlier this week, after the Seattle event, Bernie Sanders put out a fairly comprehensive package of policies for reforming the police. Hillary might or might not support some of those policies. Like with most issues, I don't really know where she stands on it. She's talked a little bit about student loans this week. That was the big thing that she revealed. But anyway, we're going to have a little bit more on this, but I do want to show a bit of the Boston organizer, the BLM, talking about their meeting with Hillary Clinton.
So you sat down, you talked with Hillary Clinton. What did she tell you?
So the questions that we asked were very specific in terms of her and her family's very unique position in terms of the war on drugs. The event was a community forum on substance abuse, and we were hoping to ask our questions in that public forum and to hold her accountable to answer them. We were glad that we were able to ask her those questions, and she was able to respond. I don't want to misquote her. There is video that will be out. But her response did acknowledge some of the failed policies that she's been a part of, that her in her long career has advocated for, that have actually hurt specifically Black and brown communities. What we were looking for was more of a personal statement about her feelings on the issue and where she has moved on it.
Okay, so once again, Hillary Clinton looks positive for reaching out to them, and Bernie Sanders in some ways looks negative for not wanting to have his events taken over, although he literally let them take it over in Seattle, right? Yeah. I think it's unfair, but okay, now I think it'll change too, though, because you'll see the video, right? And Hillary's policies are not as good as Bernie Sanders' policies. They're just not, okay? And as she mentioned there, she's got historic issues because a lot of people call Bill Clinton the first Black president, right? So in the context of other presidents, he was pretty good to the African-American community. In the context of what needs to get done, there's a lot of bones to pick, right? And so I think that record will catch up to Hillary Clinton a little bit, and the disparate treatment will probably come to an end at some point. So I love Black Lives Matter because we need it more than ever. I mean, even in the story we have of Ralkina Jones later in the day today, you see why it's important to have that movement. So I think it's a real interesting question as to how they interact with the candidates, but they've done a great job of grabbing that attention and turning it into positive action because Bernie Sanders now addressing it in a way he didn't address it before. So that's a huge, huge upside. But they need to hold Hillary Clinton at least as accountable.
Yeah, and they want it not just to be an issue that the candidate talks about, but one that they prioritize. I don't know where it is on the list of Hillary Clinton's most important issues. I don't know what the first issue is for her or the second issue. For Bernie, I think legitimately it's probably not in the top 3. I think that he cares more about health care reform, he cares more about the economy, and he cares about campaign finance reform, I think. He talked a lot about it at the speech anyway. For Hillary, we don't know because she's not giving us as much information. But these are 2 ways that we've shown that you can react to these protesters. You can let them take the stage or you can put them in the overflow room. Donald Trump was clear about what he would do. I would never give up my microphone. I thought that was disgusting, talking about Bernie Sanders. That showed such weakness, the way he was taken away by 2 young women. They just took the whole place over. That will never happen with me. I don't know if I'll do the fighting myself or if other people will. So he might be willing to physically fight them. But that was a disgrace. I felt badly for him, but it showed that he's weak. Which, in some sense, we might agree with, perhaps. He certainly has worse security. I mean, look, Hillary Clinton has the Secret Service protecting her at all times and making sure that nobody rushes the stage. It's not the same thing.
So here's the part I agree with. Yes, if 2 black women come on stage, Bernie Sanders will not punch them in the face.
Yeah.
And there's some chance that Donald Trump will. Okay.
Maybe.
Now, these comments by Trump, again, seem outrageous, but not to Republicans. They'll love it. They'll eat it up. They're like, yes, Donald is strong. Bernie is weak. We would also assault black women.
Yeah.
Rather ironic, given that the movement is Black Lives Matter.
And the issue is the assaults.
And Donald Trump saying, no, me representing the establishment will physically assault you if you come on our stage.
Yeah.
So
that's strength there.
You want to talk about not getting it, which then leads to the final question of when are they going to get to the Republicans? I know that a conversation with Republicans is not likely to be fruitful, right? Mm-hmm. And they're actually smart for going after Democrats first because the Democrats will actually listen and will have to adjust some of their policies in order to earn their vote. Yeah. Great, especially within the primaries. Clearly the right strategy. But once you're done with that, you should also turn to the Republicans and ask, are you ever going to do anything for black people in this country? Ever? Or is your main plan to punch them in the face if you're ever confronted with them?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it seems like most of the candidates are willing to look out at the expected returns, should they be the general election candidate, and say, I'll get 1% of the African-American vote. That's okay. I can live with that, I assume.
Yeah. Ben Carson and his family. Okay. So we now turn to our black correspondent, Jared Jackson, for views on how Hillary Clinton handled the overflow room.
You know, I don't know. Each one of these we were talking about before what happened in Seattle. I think each group is different people organizing there, you know, versus Seattle versus the Boston one. So I think it's a little bit different from each one. There's an approach that maybe this organizer didn't want to take that the ones in Seattle wanted to take. So I don't know where people's voting lines are falling. Maybe the group here likes Hillary more than they like Bernie Sanders, just because, as you said, there's the comfort and familiarity with the Clintons. Maybe the other group is on the same page as that. Maybe if he goes to Omaha, yeah, right, and the Black Lives Matter Omaha group, whoever that may be, decides to pop up, they may be on Bernie's side. Who knows? You know, so I think each one, it's not like they have this meeting amongst nationwide. Maybe they do. But I think it depends on who's at which city you're in and probably where their leanings are for who they want to vote for. That's what it seemed like to me, because even though Hillary blocked them out, then she met with them later. She's like, I don't want to put any words in Miss Clinton's mouth, but she was very okay with what we were saying, even though we completely disagreed with what she was saying, and she didn't own up to what we were asking her. I don't even want to tell you guys what I asked her. Like, let's find out what she said to you. It was a very straightforward question. Let's find out. We'll put the video out later. I don't want to put any words in her mouth. Why not? Let's hear what happened. That's what you're on TV for.
And that's what you're on TV for. I mean, yeah, that's right. And we're going to see the video. We know that you're not trying to misrepresent anything. Anyway, but it's a great context by JR, which is that it depends on who's in the room, right?
Yeah, very different groups, obviously, around the country.